I accidentally scratched a luxury car while washing it. To my surprise, the owner turned out to be my ex-fiancée. She was walking with her current partner and said, "That useless wretch can't afford to compensate anyway." Her partner replied, "Let him entertain us with a, sir." Calmly, I scratched 3 words on the car door: morgue inside entrance. Under their astonished gaze, I opened the door and calmly said, "Come, your bodies can enter through this door, and the ashes can exit through that door." The Fu family, established for a century, collapsed overnight. People thought of me, the head of the Fu family, as nothing more than a failure. They didn't know that I, personally, destroyed the Fu family. The Fu family meant nothing to me. Yet, I remained incognito as a car washer. Growing up in a car wash, I still found washing cars therapeutic. The more luxurious the car, the more therapeutic it was. The Aston Martin in front of me, worth 40 million, had its paint scratched in the most prominent spot on the hood. It resembled the winding yellow river on a map, broad and menacing. Even if the owner didn't want any other compensation, repainting would cost at least 7 figures. The entire car wash staff was dumbfounded. This car belonged to Qin Yuanxiu, the crown prince of the wealthiest family in South City, and was a gift to his beloved wife, Xin Jiyan. People in South City said that Qin Yuanxiu was ruthless, while Xin Jiyan was cunning. Either of them could easily crush the entire car wash crew. Despite the manager's repeated instructions to treat the car like a sacred object and avoid any mishaps, something still happened. As the couple looked at the scratched hood, their expressions turned increasingly hostile. The manager, seeing the situation deteriorating, immediately scolded me. "Damn it, Fu Shaoxian, you scratched a car while washing it. Even if we sold you, it wouldn't cover the repair costs. Hurry up and apologize to these 2 esteemed guests." He wanted to berate me first, hoping to make me appear pitiful and pay less compensation. But the name, Fu Shaoxian, implied that it wouldn't be cheap. As soon as those 3 words were spoken, the shocked gazes of the couple turned towards me simultaneously, like lightning bolts. "Hey, isn't that useless wretch?" The woman's voice was low but derogatory. "Indeed, he is. Turned into a car washer," the man said, looking down on me with a mixture of arrogance and disdain. At this moment, I, dressed as a car washer, holding a wet cloth in my hand, covered in a mixture of car wash water and sweat, with foam slowly dissipating, appeared quite shabby compared to their high luxury. Squinting at them, I calmly said, "Heh, didn't make a mistake, did you? Isn't this Fu Dashao?" Xin Jiyan always looked down on me, seeing me now reduced to a car washer. Still not humble, she couldn't help but be sarcastic. I twisted the cloth and insinuated, "That's right, your former fiancée, Mrs. Qin, hasn't changed her mind so soon, has she?" Qin Yuanxiu immediately felt sour. "Damn it, you, a discarded son-in-law of the Shen family, feeling proud?" I said seriously, "Young master, is it impolite to say that about your former brother-in-law? Am I feeling proud? I am expressing my satisfaction with her." Qin Yuanxiu's face turned purple with anger. He knew exactly what had happened between me and Xin Jiyan. He wanted to retort but feared hurting his beloved wife's feelings. Not retorting would be like admitting defeat. He was speechless. Blushing, Xin Jiyan said, "Enough talk, you useless wretch. Just tell us how you're going to compensate." Useless wretch. She always knew how to twist the knife. The manager and the other car wash brothers were stunned. How could I speak to these 2 dignitaries in such a tone? I must be crazy. But the craziest part was yet to come. With a nonchalant look, I asked, "How do you want me to compensate? Name your price." Qin Yuanxiu said harshly, "Me name the price. 5 million then." He was confident I couldn't afford it. I smiled faintly. 5 million? Is Mr. Qin strapped for cash and trying to extort me for some quick money? 5 million is fine. It's just that the damage isn't worth 5 million. Xin Jiyan sneered, not even looking at me. Har, look at him pretending to be a big shot here. That useless wretch can't afford it anyway. Qin Yuanxiu coldly said, "If you can't pay, then pay with something else. You 2 had a past relationship. Give us some face. Otherwise, make him kneel and apologize, and we'll call it even." Xin Jiyan huffed. "What face does he need? Let him kneel on Binjiang Road and say, 'I'm sorry, sir, I won't dare again.' If someone gives him 100 yuan, we'll let him off." I chuckled. "Kneel, I'm afraid your longevity can't bear it." The manager, noticing our hostile tones, hurriedly intervened. "Young Master Qin, it was indeed our fault that the car was scratched. We guarantee to restore the car for you. Would additional compensation be acceptable?" Qin Yuanxiu sneered. "Compensation? Money? I have more than enough money. Don't want to kneel? Then how about losing a hand?" I remained silent and noncommittal. Qin Yuanxiu toyed with his teacup, casually saying, "It doesn't look like a single person could have scratched this car. It seems I need to ask everyone who did it." The car wash brothers panicked at the thought of being scapegoated by Qin Yuanxiu. They quickly approached me, half forcing and half persuading. "Brother Fu, we're just car washers. How much is our knee worth? Don't make us all suffer. If someone gives me 7 figures, I'll call them ancestors and kowtow 3 times. Don't die to save face. Who are you saving face for? Is your face worth 5 million? We're just car washers. We can't afford it. Please don't argue with young Master Qin. The manager was also anxious. Fu Xiaoxian, since you're the one who scratched the car, you should apologize and compensate. A real man can bend and stretch. Kneeling is not a big deal. It saves you from a 7-figure compensation. Qin Yuanxiu glanced at me and said leisurely, Fu Daxiao, don't blame me for bullying you. The choice is yours. Kneel, lose a hand, or suffer together with everyone. You know we don't have as much free time as you do. I'm short on time. Several men in black slowly surrounded me. The metallic objects in their hands glinted ominously. At first glance, were those triangular daggers? Everyone was tense, almost pressing me to kneel down. I calmly said, don't worry, everyone. As young Master Qin said, I have the freedom to choose. Besides kneeling or losing a hand, aren't there any other options? You'll give 5 million, they all exclaimed. In their eyes, I was just a car washer, possibly part-time. Where would I get 5 million? Even if I did have 5 million, wouldn't kneeling be more desirable than losing a hand and leaving 5 million behind? Qin Yuanxiu was somewhat skeptical and unwilling as he looked at me. He had harbored a grudge against me ever since Shenjian chose me over him as her fiancé. He had been waiting for an opportunity to either humiliate or ruin me. For me to produce 5 million was a direct slap in his face. Shenjian also sneered. You, a family reject, have 5 million. Shenjian especially hated me. She had chosen the top family in the northern city, the Fu family, over Qin Yuanxiu, and had made great efforts to elevate me to the position of the head of the Fu family. Unexpectedly, the Fu family collapsed within 6 months under my leadership, leaving her empty-handed. For a moment, everyone in the room seemed to neither believe I could produce 5 million nor hope that I would. Under their complex gazes, I calmly made a phone call and whispered, bring over the 5 million check. Shenjian didn't believe it and mocked. Har, trying to deceive us, didn't mention the time, place, or where to send it. Qin Yuanxiu agreed and asked, Fu Daxiao, how long will it take? A month or a year? Give us a time frame, so I can plan accordingly. Everyone suddenly became suspicious. I said, 5 minutes. Shenjian suddenly laughed mockingly. 5 minutes? Is the god of wealth waiting at your door? Did you raise it? Everyone instantly thought I was boasting. 5 million. Needed urgently. Delivered in 5 minutes. Even Qin Yuanxiu might not be able to do it. Qin Yuanxiu immediately agreed. Fine, we'll wait for 5 minutes. 5 million in 5 minutes. If not, I'll cripple your hand. I replied. Fine, 5 million for one hand. I've noted it down. As I finished speaking, he started the countdown. Everyone nervously watched the clock. 10, 9, 8, 7. Qin Yuanxiu slowly stood up and straightened his clothes. 3, 2, 1. Qin Yuanxiu raised his wrist and decisively gave the order to the men in black. At the critical moment, a gorgeously dressed middle-aged woman rushed in. She said nothing, just walked up to me and handed me a check. I gestured with my eyes for her to give it directly to Qin Yuanxiu. Shenjian's eyes widened in disbelief as she sarcastically said, I knew it was too good to be true. Turns out you found a wealthy woman. Money talks, right? Qin Yuanxiu added. A lowly person will always be lowly, truly despicable and unworthy of respect. I whispered, stop the nonsense. I've got the 5 million. Now, drive off in your car. Shenjian, still sour and jealous, said to the middle-aged woman, so obedient. Should have come earlier. What's the point of showing off at the last second? The middle-aged woman said calmly. Mr. Fu said 5 minutes means 5 minutes. Not a second earlier, not a second later. Shenjian said, oh, you've trained him to be obedient. Would he die if you told him to? The middle-aged woman gave her a disdainful look and said, Mr. Fu doesn't speak nonsense. Shenjian, caught off guard by the retort, was momentarily silenced. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she said, let's check the check carefully. Make sure it's not fake, okay? At this moment, the manager suddenly became very nervous and said, you accounting? Where did you get the check? Is it from the company? Did you use company funds? Shenjian laughed. Har har har. So it's a fake rich woman using public funds? Mr. Fu Xiaoxian, you're quite something. Working as a car washer and still managing to get involved with the car wash shop accountant. Qin Yuanxiu had one of his subordinates take the check and looked at it disdainfully. Just that one look, and he suddenly stood up. Shenjian continued to arrogantly mock and ridicule, completely oblivious to her husband's strange expression. Qin Yuanxiu signaled to her, but she continued to mock. You accounting? You, a middle-aged woman, greedy and lustful, can you handle that man? Then she asked me, that fake rich woman, did you miscalculate? Lost your virginity without getting any money? Unfair, isn't it? Har har har. Indeed a useless coward. I watched her prancing around there, completely oblivious and carefree. There was no need for me to intervene. Qin Yuanxiu's expression changed rapidly, finally unable to hold back and shouted, shut up. Shenjian replied, exactly, Stop your chattering and give us the money. Qin Yuanxiu gritted his teeth and said to her, I told you to shut up. Shen Jiyan was stunned for a moment and retorted, Are you freaking crazy? Qin Yuanxiu showed the check to Shen Jiyan. She glanced at it disdainfully, then suddenly froze. She snatched it and examined it carefully, also falling silent. The signer of the check was Su Lianyan, and Su Lianyan was the person they wanted to see. This car wash shop, called C Club, was the largest in Nanchang. The legal representative, Su Lianyan, was a legend of wealth and power in Hua country. Whoever collaborated with him would become the dominant force. Their C here, in the eyes of ordinary people, represented car. In the eyes of the wealthy, it represented currency. C Club was the gateway for Nanchang's elite to see Su Lianyan. Only at this car wash shop could they possibly meet him. Qin Yuanxiu and his wife came here to wash their car personally for this purpose. The Qin family had recently been targeted by a mysterious opponent, suffering frequent losses in the business world. They had gone from being the top family in Nanchang to being on the brink of collapse. Now they were desperately trying to cooperate with Su Lianyan in the hope of finding a glimmer of hope and turning things around. And now, the signer of my compensation check was Su Lianyan. People in the business world understood what this meant. Qin Yuanxiu hesitated. What was the relationship between me and Su Lianyan? Should he continue seeking revenge against me, or try to turn me into an ally? This decision was a matter of life and death for the Qin family. I looked at him with a slight smile, my gaze profound and inscrutable. At this point, the manager pressed Yu Accounting about the source of the check, fearing he wouldn't be able to handle the responsibility. Yu Accounting said quietly, Mr. Su's assistant Wu just informed us that our car shop caused customer losses and should compensate. Not to mention Mr. Qin's losses. Upon hearing this, Qin Yuanxiu visibly breathed a sigh of relief, thinking he had overthought it. He had never believed that I could know the secrets of this shop. In their eyes, I was just a useless person kept by the Fu family outside. After the Fu family fell, I could only be a desolate dog. How could I possibly know the secrets known only to the top wealthy circles? Thinking of this, Qin Yuanxiu's courage recovered somewhat. He said to Yu Accounting, Please tell Mr. Su that the compensation is unnecessary. Today's events have caused him trouble. I hope Mr. Su can find time to meet. With that, he respectfully handed the check back. Yu Accounting said expressionlessly, I'm sorry, Mr. Qin. I can only follow orders and cannot contact Mr. Su proactively. So, I'm sorry I can't pass on the message. Disappointment and patience mixed together in Qin Yuanxiu's heart, feeling both resentful and helpless towards me. Today, I'll let you off because of Mr. Su's face. I coldly replied, You understand, it's not about who lets who off, but about the completion of the transaction. Mr. Su's signed check, whether you accept it or not, must be accepted. 5 million for a handshake, a fair price. After all this commotion, it was impossible to wash the car again today. After changing out of the car wash uniform, I walked past a traffic light, and a discreetly painted performance RV was parked at the corner. I walked up to it, and the door opened silently. I got in and sat down. Wu assistant hurriedly approached me and bowed. I'm sorry, sir, I was a second late just now. I looked at him. Sweat dripped from Wu assistant's forehead. It's because I just received news that Madam's jade unicorn suddenly appeared. I sent someone to chase after it, causing a delay. I took a sip of water and said in a deep voice, There shouldn't be a next time. Wu assistant picked up the bronze paperweight on the table and smashed it directly on his hand, blood oozing out, but he didn't even furrow his brow. There won't be a next time. Get it wrapped up. I frowned slightly. Thank you, sir. The minor injury is nothing. Madam's jade unicorn is a big deal. It will be the highlight of the auction at the Gazette on Saturday. The seller is a mysterious person, maybe related to Madam's death. Tell Su Lianyan to buy it. Okay. Let him invite the head of the Qin family as well. Wu assistant was stunned. There's a man in black under him, carrying a three-edged, double-edged sword. I stared at Wu assistant. Wu assistant was shocked. Madam's wound. Understood. Wu assistant, how many years have you been with me? I took a sip of tea and asked slowly. 10 years. Master Fu. Wu assistant replied respectfully. 10 years. 10 years. I sighed. On Saturday, the top wealthy families of Hua country gathered at the auction. It was said that the jade unicorn being auctioned as the finale hid the wealth code of the Fu family. Although the Fu family collapsed overnight, its century-old foundation was not in vain. The huge hidden wealth was secreted within this jade unicorn. The sudden appearance of this jade unicorn stirred up the entire city. Even Su Lianyan, who rarely appeared in public, would be present. It could be seen how unfathomable the wealth represented by the jade unicorn was. And everyone came to the auction for another reason. It was said that Su Lianyan was looking for a partner. Everyone understood that whoever partnered with Su Lianyan would become the dominant force. Even if they didn't directly partner, being under the umbrella of the chosen partner would still yield benefits. The crisis facing the Qin family was unknown to everyone. Now that the top wealthy family of the north, the Fu family, had fallen, it was natural for the top wealthy family of the south, the Qin family, to be considered the most likely choice for Su Lianyan. I arrived relatively early, almost at the same time as me. Qin Yuanxiu and his wife arrived. Seeing me, they asked in surprise, "You useless person is here too. Did you latch onto another rich woman? Or are you here to see the remnants of your Fu family?" Then they said to the security personnel at the door, "For this auction, Mr. Su will be coming. Keep your eyes sharp and don't let just anyone in." The security personnel were embarrassed and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Qin, Mr. Fu brought an invitation letter." Qin Yuanxiu gestured to show my invitation letter to him. As soon as the security personnel handed it to him, without even looking at it, he tore it up, threw it into the trash can, wiped his hands, and said softly, "It's gone now." I smiled. I had come for the jade unicorn, not to deal with them, but they insisted on courting trouble, and I couldn't avoid it. I said, "Mr. Qin, before tearing it up, don't you want to see who the invitation was for?" Qin Yuanxiu sneered, "Tonight, our Qin family will have a major cooperation, and people like you won't be allowed in." The security personnel didn't know me, but they knew Qin Yuanxiu. Seeing that the Qin family's young master wanted me to leave, the security personnel immediately drove me out. I sneered and said, "I'm afraid you won't get the cooperation you want." Qin Yuanxiu said smugly, "Then let's wait and see." Seeing that I and Qin Yuanxiu had a conflict, his friends immediately stepped forward. They thought that stepping on me to please the young master of the Qin family would at least get them a piece of the pie. Li's son said, "Hey, isn't this the famous Fu Dashao? Not washing cars anymore? Didn't you grow up in a car wash? Can you get used to not washing cars?" Zhao's son said, "He's their head now. Why bring up the past? Does he think everyone's forgotten their roots?" Princess Qian covered her mouth and giggled. "Har har, thought you'd become a phoenix perched on a branch, but turns out you're just a wild chicken." Princess Sun raised her nostrils to the sky. "A stinky loach gets a little seawater and thinks it's seafood." This habit of ridiculing others doesn't just disappear with wealth. Several princes and princesses mock me with great satisfaction. I can see it clearly. They are not only standing up for Qin Yuanxiu, but also because I, once considered beneath them, have suddenly become the unattainable head of the Fu family. Envy truly is the most potent madness-inducing drug, I said indifferently. Your words pollute the air. Speak less, and you might live a little better. I meant it as sincere advice, but they took it as a challenge. Qin Yuanxiu bluntly retorted, "Giving you face? A worthless ex-husband like you would even find it disgusting to kneel and lick my shoes." I glanced at them disdainfully and said, "You like kneeling so much." "I don't. I prefer seeing people groveling at my feet." Princess Jing mocked, "Oh, this ex-husband is threatening us now? I'm so scared." Young Master Zhu snorted coldly, "A little wild seed, thinking he can overturn the heavens. Wild seed." I dropped the cheeky demeanor, my voice turning icy. Then I slowly pulled out a watch and put it on. A chill filled the air. Young Master Zhu's expression instantly tensed. I spoke solemnly towards my wrist. "Is the head of the Zhu family Zhu Nanshan? Let him come here and discipline the Zhu family." Upon hearing this, young Master Zhu relaxed, smirking. "I've seen pretentious, but never this pretentious. My uncle is abroad. You think you can make him come over, even if he's in the country? You're not someone he'd bother meeting." "What? You can transform into someone else now? Hurry up and impress me. Let's give young Master Fu a chance to perform some magic tricks for us and entertain us." Har har har. As they chatted and laughed, the former head of the Fu family, the once unattainable young Master Fu who had risen from the swamps to the clouds, was now being trampled by them, which they found particularly satisfying. With each passing second, their sense of satisfaction grew. When people court death, even gods can't save them. Watching them arrogantly revel in their superiority, I sneered, "If he can make it, it's a blessing for your Zhu family. If he can't, you'll have to pray to Buddha for protection." I brushed past a few people and headed to the auction hall. They even tried to intercept me. "Can just anyone enter the auction? Acting like a phoenix with a feather stuck in its tail? No invitation, no entry, so annoying." I waved my hand, and two women in black suits suddenly appeared. They both had short, neat haircuts, expressionless faces, and stood behind me, blocking those who were chasing after me. Qin Yuanxiu stepped forward and tried to push them aside. One of the women said, "This is the one who's supposedly an ex-husband, not even worthy of kneeling and licking shoes." The two women nodded in agreement, and then there were a few clicks followed by screams. Qin Yuanxiu's wrist and knees shattered, and he collapsed on the ground wailing. "Well, this meets the standard of groveling at one's feet." The two women nodded satisfactorily. Shen Jian was boasting to some wealthy young ladies about how the head of the Qin family would be coming with Su Lianyan. Then they heard Qin Yuanxiu's screams. The auction security company belonged to the top-tier Cloud Leopard Group, an investigative agency I had trained. Before they could say anything, a group of people arrived. Making a scene like this at such an event would tarnish the reputation of the Cloud Leopard Group. The person in charge sternly questioned the two women in black, but the women said, We don't even know the person who fell. We were just walking normally when he harassed us. He directly groped us. We acted in self-defense. There's surveillance footage to prove it." As they spoke, they subtly revealed the black and gold leopard head pattern on the lining of their shirts. Their head of security felt a chill. Were these the Golden Leopard sisters? If they were here, then their superior must be here too. Tonight, there would definitely be a bloodbath. At this moment, the matriarch of the Qin family arrived. Seeing her beloved son in such a state, she exploded. She immediately demanded that her entourage restrain the Golden Leopard sisters. But those people were no match. They were quickly dealt with by the Golden Leopard sisters. Now, members of the Qin family were strewn across the hall. The Golden Leopard sisters sneered. "You're cursing others without even considering your own capabilities. We've seen people snatch gold and silver, but never seen someone so eager to get beaten up." The Qin matriarch was furious and rushed forward to attack, only to be stopped by the Cloud Leopard security. The head of the Cloud Leopard calmly said, "Better control your own people and avoid causing trouble." Shen Jian rushed forward, intending to grab the hair of the two women, but found she couldn't even touch them. Finally, Mrs. Qin, with a drastic change from her usual gentle demeanor, said menacingly, "Fu Shaoxian, just you wait. A mere ex-husband, a wild seed, dares to meddle in the affairs of my Qin family. The Qin family will make sure you have no place to bury yourself." Seeing their determination to chase after me as if to devour my flesh and drink my blood, I turned around and coldly said, "Qin Shao once said, 1 hand is worth 5 million. Without 5 million, you'll lose a hand. For someone in need of 500 billion to save their life, how many hands should they give up?" Mrs. Qin's pupils dilated for a moment. I continued slowly. "Let me calculate. 500 billion is equivalent to 10,000 times 5 million. 5 million is equivalent to 1 hand." I suddenly approached Qin Yuanxiu and asked slowly, "I wonder, does the Qin family have 10,000 hands in total? Or, when combined with the Shen family, is it enough?" Mrs. Qin was speechless, her sinister expression turning even colder. She hadn't expected someone to know about their need for 500 billion in funds. Someone like this posed a threat just by being alive. The commotion behind me had almost everyone's attention. I walked alone to the auction hall and sat in a corner. This was a spot I had specially arranged, easy to observe the whole room without being easily noticed. My goal today was to find the mysterious seller. The seller must be the mastermind behind the death of my wife, Wanner. When Wanner was killed, the scene was deemed the work of a passing thief. Only I knew that the killer had gone after the Jade Shilin. Only I knew that Wanner had the Jade Shilin. Who else in this world could bypass the Cloud Leopard system to commit murder and take away the Jade Shilin? The wounds on her body could only have been caused by a rare triple-edged dagger. Even the most powerful Cloud Leopard system hadn't identified the culprit. This showed how deep the scheming and how great the power of the culprit were. Initially, they should have hidden after plotting Wanner's death and taking away the Jade Shilin. But within such a short time, they dared to take the risk of auctioning it off again. They must be trying to attract me. They probably knew the secret that the Jade Shilin held wealth but didn't know how to extract it. The only person in this world who knew the answer was me. They definitely wanted to lure me out. As soon as I sat down, a beautiful woman sat down next to me. Her features simple yet alluring, her figure curvaceous. With long, slender fingers, she casually flipped through the auction catalogue. The lively atmosphere in the room couldn't distract her. Her sitting next to me instead indicated that there was something more attractive about me. She looked at me, seemingly seeing through my thoughts, and said, "I'm Lisa. The organizer arranged for me to sit here." I raised an eyebrow at her, finding her intriguing. "Miss, aren't you going to the main hall to see the excitement?" Lisa replied, "I don't have the capital to watch the excitement. Even if young Master Qin is lying on the ground, he's still far higher than me." I squinted at her, finding her quite interesting. "What item are you interested in?" She replied, "Are you going to give it to me? If not, let's focus on our own preferences. Or you could tell me which one you like, and I'll see if I'm honored enough to gift it to you." The Jade Shilin. Miss is very direct, choosing the finale of the auction. "What do you like about the Jade Shilin?" "Sir should know what I like about the Jade Shilin, right?" She paused, then smiled. "Don't think too much. The Jade Shilin symbolizes auspiciousness, so I like it." I said, "If it's auctioned for less than 2 billion, I'll give it to you." She looked at me with surprise and said, "Sir is joking. We've just met. I dare not accept such a generous gift." I smiled. I knew that 2 billion wasn't considered a generous gift in her eyes. At this moment, a strong air current stirred in the auction hall. Su Lianyun had arrived. His aura was indeed powerful. As he walked over, everyone voluntarily made way for him, and no one dared to strike up a conversation. Accompanying him was the head of the Qin family, Qin Jingzhong, and Qin Yuanxiu's father. Su Lianyun sat directly in the front row. Seat C. After sitting down, he stared straight ahead at the auction stage. Qin Jingzhong occasionally said something, and Su Lianyun would tilt his head slightly to show he was listening. However, from the moment he appeared until he took his seat, He didn't say a word or show any expression. The admiring gazes of the crowd fell on the Qin family. It seemed that the Qin family was the collaborator chosen by Su Lianyan. Mrs. Qin's sinister gaze pierced through the rows of people and directly landed on me. I politely nodded in acknowledgement. Mrs. Qin's expression grew even more sinister. Soon, the auction reached its climax. The jade cheline was showcased. Under the lights, a faint mist rose. It was indescribably beautiful, drawing murmurs of admiration from the hall. The auction for the jade cheline was not as intense as expected. In fact, it was quite plain. When Su Lianyan placed the first bid of 1 billion, there were no other bidders. After all, no one wanted to antagonize Su Lianyan. As the auctioneer was about to hammer it down, Lisa suddenly raised her paddle. Then she turned her head and whispered, "Sir, didn't you say you would give it to me? Why aren't you bidding?" I said, "I forgot to submit the deposit. I can't bid on this item." "Lisa, if Sir likes it, I can bid on it and give it to you." I lightly tapped my wrist. Su Lianyan withdrew from the bidding. Everyone looked at Lisa. She bid 2 billion. After leaving the auction hall, Lisa caught up to me. "Mr. Fu, the jade cheline is yours, returning to its original owner." I said, "I dare not accept such a grand gift." "Lisa, if you feel guilty, why not invite me to stay at your mansion? I just came back from abroad and I'm not familiar with this place." "Mr. Fu looks familiar to me." I chuckled. Respect is better than obedience. I knew I could save this money and get back the jade cheline, but this battlefield would spread to my mansion. Lisa's investigation report was quickly placed in front of me. Lisa, an orphan, was adopted by Americans and became a foreign citizen at a young age. She had only been to China once, 5 years ago. Yesterday was her second entry into China. 5 years ago, a strange time point. That year, I was ambushed, and a stranger, Wana, risked her life to save me. After that, she became my other half. I played back the surveillance video of the auction scene. The entire auction seemed normal with no unusual occurrences, but my mind was filled with a myriad of images. These images became clearer and more complete over time. When Su Lianyan bid 1 billion, Mrs. Qin calmly took a sip of tea, showing no signs of nervousness or abnormality. But when the auctioneer was about to drop the hammer for the third time, Mrs. Qin turned and looked at me. At that moment, I thought she was trying to intimidate me. When I looked back at Mrs. Qin, Lisa raised her bidding card. Suddenly, a possibility occurred to me. Perhaps Mrs. Qin's turning around wasn't directed at me but at Lisa sitting next to me, signaling her in some way. And Lisa, upon receiving the signal, raised her card. This would explain many contradictions. Everyone knew that Su Lianyan was going to bid on the jade cheline. No major families in the country dared to compete with him, and the Qin family was no exception. But the Qin family was determined to obtain the jade cheline, so they used Lisa, with her foreign identity, to bid. What was the relationship between Mrs. Qin and Lisa? In the old mansion's secret room, a man with a 3-point blade, escorted by Qin Yuanshu's men, was brought in. His subordinates said his name was Liu Hu. I waved my hand, signaling everyone else to leave. Assistant Wu nervously asked, "Should we send someone to guard you?" "Sir," I replied, "just you." Assistant Wu immediately broke into a cold sweat. I looked at Liu Hu. "Speak." Liu Hu nervously said, "How do you know I'll talk?" I replied, "In the car wash, didn't you deliberately let me see your knife?" Liu Hu licked his lips and said, "I know I'm not going to survive. As long as Lord Fu saves my wife and children, I'll tell everything." I took a sip of tea and put down the teacup. "Do you think you have the capital to negotiate?" Liu Hu knelt down and banged his head, saying, "I was wrong. Please spare my wife and children's lives." I said, "Go on." Liu Hu said, trembling, "Wana was sent by Mrs. Qin to be by your side." I slapped him across the face. "How dare you speak ill of Wana? You don't want to live." Liu Hu groveled on the ground, shaking, but continued, "Mrs. Qin, 5 years ago, planted Wana by your side. The ambush on you was carried out by my brothers. She instructed Wana to save you with the aim of having Wana infiltrate your side and obtain the jade cheline. 2 years ago, the Qin family's business suddenly plummeted. The old lady asked Wana to steal the jade cheline, but Wana refused, so she sent me to find Wana. At that time, Wana had already fallen in love with you and had your child, so she wouldn't give up the jade cheline. So the old lady ordered me to silence her, to prevent her from revealing her true identity to you and to retrieve the jade cheline. So you killed her?" "I did stab her, but it wasn't fatal and wouldn't have killed her." "Why did you turn against her?" "Because after Wana died, the old lady hid my wife and children. She was afraid that I would leak the secret. But I know she's no match for you. If I had been caught by you, she would have killed them to eliminate the threat. So I want to beg you to save my wife and children. I've told you everything I know. I know you can't tolerate traitors. I'll leave now, only hoping you'll save my wife and children. In the next life, I'll be a cow or horse for you." With that, he bowed 3 times and then rushed towards the wall. The blood splattered all over Assistant Wu. I looked at him and asked slowly, "Assistant Wu, what do you think?" Assistant Wu's face turned pale, kneeling and pleading, "Sir, I really had no choice. But I really didn't do anything wrong to you. If you had, would you still be here today? I know I should die. That day almost cost you a great deal. Seeing that I've been running errands for you for 10 years, I just hope you'll consider my family. Is it your family that had an accident at the car wash that day? You can tell me, but you don't trust me. Your daughter's birthday is next month, isn't it? You should retire. Consider this a 10-year favor. I waved my hand, indicating for him to leave. Before he left on his knees, he said one last thing. Sir, I'll remember that I owe you a life. The Golden Panther sisters appeared. Sir, shall we stay? Stay, I said. But he knows too much. It's been 10 years, and he just can't handle this job anymore. Sir, last time you softened your heart, you lost your wife. I felt a pang of sorrow. Perhaps losing Wana wasn't because I was soft-hearted but because she was too kind-hearted. Liu Hu didn't fatally wound her. She feared becoming a pawn for others to threaten me. So she created her own demise twice. Only Wana and I knew about it. So how did others find out? Liu Hu was telling the truth. My Wana. 2 days later, Lisa suddenly asked, "Where's Assistant Wu?" I smiled and asked, "Why are you asking me?" Lisa suddenly covered her mouth, realizing she had spoken out of turn. Assistant Wu always appeared to be Su Lianyan's assistant, and I had never appeared in public with him. The number of living people who knew that Su Lianyan was my secretary could be counted on one hand. Still, I answered her. He retired. Lisa, upon hearing this, became extremely nervous and said, "Oh no, he won't survive." I looked at her, waiting for her to say more. She anxiously said, "You should go check on him right away. If it's too late, he'll surely die." I raised my hand to send the Golden Panther sisters to handle it. Soon, they reported that Assistant Wu's family had suffered from gas poisoning and was being treated. Gas poisoning? That's quite an old method of murder. Lisa seemed visibly shaken. I didn't press her for more information. I don't force women. There are always others who will. That night, after taking a shower, as I stepped out of the bathroom, I saw Lisa standing in my bedroom. She closed the door behind her and said, "Lord Fu, what a great physique you have. Let me help you dry off." With that, she approached me and reached for a towel. I grabbed her wrist, looking at her in silence. She continued, "How about we bathe together again?" With that, she led me to the bathroom, where the shower was soon running. Steam filled the room, mingling with the sound of water. Lisa quickly stripped off all her clothes, wrapped herself in a towel, and silently walked out of the bathroom barefoot. As soon as she stepped out, she hurriedly said, "Assistant Wu's poisoning must be the work of Mrs. Qin. She always eliminates those who have been used and are of no more use to her." When Assistant Wu's family had an accident and was rescued, it was Mrs. Qin's doing. She wanted Assistant Wu to do her a favor. Does Mrs. Qin also know that Assistant Wu is my secretary? I asked. No, she thinks Assistant Wu is Su Lianyan's secretary. She was eager to push back against everyone and cooperate with Su Lianyan. So, she pressured Assistant Wu by saving his family, making him arrange for the heads of the Qin family and Su Lianyan to enter the venue together, making everyone believe that Su and Qin were definitely cooperating. I nodded. "Aren't you surprised?" she asked. "I'm not surprised. I knew all along. That's one of the reasons I arranged for Su and Qin to enter together. What I'm curious about is what you're trying to do." She chuckled. "Scared you, didn't I? I was also sent by Mrs. Qin. She had planted listening devices in my underwear. She wanted me to seduce you and find out how to obtain wealth with the Jade Kareen. I had to pretend to seduce you in the shower, undress in the bathroom, to make it plausible." "Plausible?" I asked. In a daze, Lisa climbed onto me. For several days, Lisa followed the same pattern. Just when I suspected she had forgotten her mission, Lisa whispered in my ear, her warm breath enveloping me, saying, "The Jade Kareen is now ours, and so is their wealth." I nodded. "So, how exactly can we exchange wealth for the Jade Kareen?" I joked. "How about we exchange secrets? How did you know Assistant Wu was my man?" "Lisa, I took care of his family. Assistant Wu told his family to seek your help if anything happened. But I didn't tell Mrs. Qin that Assistant Wu was your man." I sighed. "So Assistant Wu didn't distrust me. He just trusted me too much. But he still told his family what he shouldn't have. He forgot about my principles. Why didn't you tell Mrs. Qin?" I asked Lisa. "That's the second question. You answer the first one first." I smiled. "What secret is there to exchange for wealth? It's just a rumor. Let's wait until the Jade Kareen is delivered from the auction house. Then we can study it together." Lisa's face suddenly changed, forcing a smile through gritted teeth. "Lord Fu, I've given you myself and the Jade Kareen. Why don't you trust me? Answer me a question first, and then I'll tell you the answer." "Do you know Wana?" I asked. Lisa bit her lip, unable to say a word. 5 years ago, Mrs. Qin originally sent Lisa to protect me from harm. Because Lisa grew up abroad and had a clean background, she wouldn't easily be found out. But when it came time to protect me, she got scared and backed out. But if she didn't protect me, I would undoubtedly die. At the critical moment, Wana stepped in. 2 years ago, when Wana was dying, she saved her last breath for me, just to tell me, "Be careful of Lisa." But before she died, She didn't mention Mrs. Sheen. She only expressed gratitude for raising her. Kind people often meet unfair ends. This is truly the most unfair thing in the world. And I am never a kind person, Lisa said with unwillingness. I met you at the same time as Juana did. My feelings for you are not shallower than hers. I even brought the jade Kareen back for you. Why do you still cling to Juana? I pursed my lips and replied softly, brought it back for me. It should have been Juana's in the first place. If I'm not mistaken, the seller is Mrs. Sheen, right? You didn't intend to auction off the jade Kareen at all. You just wanted it to pass through my hands for a while, to make me reveal its secret. 2 billion. You didn't even need to bid. You just had to pay a little commission. I just didn't expect that your ambition is even greater than Mrs. Sheen's. You want to monopolize the wealth of the jade Kareen? But you don't know that what you've been scheming to find out, the so-called wealth password of the jade Kareen, is just a figment of your greedy imagination. My mother was a maid's daughter in the Sheen family and also Mrs. Sheen's college classmate. Qin Jingjong fell in love with my mother, but he was married to Mrs. Sheen. When Mrs. Sheen found out, she pretended to invite my mother to dinner and then sent her to my father's bed, her business partner. Unexpectedly, my parents fell in love. The old lady of the Fu family didn't tolerate my mother, so my father arranged for my mother to be placed in the southern city and entrusted Qin Jingjong to take care of her. My father gave my mother the jade Kareen and said, "This jade Kareen hides half of the country's wealth. You must keep it safe." At that time, my father's meaning was just to say that the Kareen would bring a son. My mother gave birth to his son, who would be the heir to the Fu family. It was a promise my father made to my mother. Unexpectedly, this sentence was overheard by Mrs. Sheen, who thought the jade Kareen contained a huge fortune, which sowed the seeds of disaster. 2 years ago, when I found out that Juana was pregnant, I thought about giving her the jade unicorn, a keepsake from my mother. It was meant to symbolize blessings and prosperity for the child. Little did I know, it ended up bringing her harm. Lisa listened intently, her eyes wide with shock. Suddenly, she remembered something and said in a fearful tone, "I don't want to listen, I don't want to." I chuckled. "It's too late. Now that you know, I might as well tell you everything. After all, you've paid quite a price for it. The reason I personally destroyed the Fu family was simply to avenge my mother. Fu's old lady used the pretext of my father facing great difficulties and needing a marriage alliance to deceive my mother into leaving my father. After my mother became pregnant with me, that old lady again claimed that I was an illegitimate child, causing endless troubles for my mother. My father was too busy satisfying his new wife, neglecting my mother. Later, my mother had to hide and ended up with a car washer just to save me. My father's new wife couldn't bear children, so my father sought out numerous other women, but either they couldn't conceive or the children died inexplicably early. When Juana appeared, I thought about giving up on revenge, but she died, and so did my mother. With them alive, I felt inclined to be a better person, but with them gone, I couldn't find any reason to be kind. I made my appearance with the jade unicorn just in time to become the heir of the Fu family. By then, I had already established my own kingdom, far surpassing the Fu family. I went to the Fu family to destroy the hell that had harmed my mother. And next, I will destroy the hell that caused Juana's death. Lisa exclaimed in shock. You were the one behind the Fu family's downfall? And now you're going to destroy the Qin family too? How powerful are you to topple the overlords of both the North and the South? I replied nonchalantly. How difficult could it be? Tonight, you'll see. Cloud Summit Hotel, top floor. The scene was filled with opulence and extravagance. Today, the Qin family was hosting a grand reception where Su Lianyan would sign a cooperation agreement with them. When I arrived, only Qin Jingjong and Su Lianyan, the two main figures, had yet to arrive. Upon seeing me enter the hall, Qin Yuanxiu's face turned pale. Who let you in? He was still in his wheelchair, his eyes burning with hatred. Shin Jian, pushing the wheelchair, also saw me and said spitefully, "You've come to us on your own accord. Good. Tonight, the Qin family will make sure you have no place to bury yourself." I calmly replied, "Remember the 10,000 hands you owe. It's time to repay them." Qin's old lady saw me and squinted, saying, "Young Master Fu, it seems I underestimated you, but after tonight, the Qin family will crush you like ants." I nodded and said, "Yes, indeed. After tonight, the Qin family will indeed be as you say." Qin's old lady looked pleased with herself. I approached a bit closer and said softly, "But the question is, can the Qin family survive tonight?" Qin's old lady stopped in her tracks and turned back. "You know," I gestured towards my wrist and said, 20 billion. Another person hurriedly ran in and whispered something to Qin's old lady. This time, Qin's old lady's face completely changed. She even stuttered a bit as she said, "You want 10 billion? I calmly replied, 20 billion. Another person rushed in and whispered to Qin's old lady. This time, Qin's old lady's complexion changed completely. She even stuttered a bit as she said, "Is that the money you want? You pirate robber. I'm going to call the police." I chuckled. "Madam Qin is joking. Your international ships were hijacked on the high seas, and not only did you lose your cargo, but you also have to compensate for the losses caused by the pirates. How could that be something I want? Madam, you need evidence for your accusations. At this point, someone handed a phone to Chin's old lady. The entire hall fell silent. Everyone present was astute enough to know that the Chin family's international shipping was hijacked by pirates. And not only were their goods stolen, but they also had to compensate for the losses incurred by the pirates. On the other end of the line was Chin's old lady's own younger brother. She had always thought that international shipping was a gold mine, so she handed it over to her younger brother to manage. The pirates demanded 20 billion in compensation, to be wired to a designated account immediately, or else they would kill Chin's old lady's brother. Her brother shouted frantically, sis, please save me. There are sharks below. Hurry and wire the money to the account, or I'll really be dead. Chin's old lady's voice trembled as she said, I'll wire it over first thing tomorrow morning. The pirate laughed arrogantly. Tomorrow morning? I'll give you half an hour. I want to see the money in the account. Otherwise, your brother will be shark food. Sis, it's only 20 billion. Hurry and wire it to the account. Let me think first. Chin's old lady turned pale. I don't have much time left. The entire hall was stunned. It was her beloved brother's life at stake. Could it be that the Chin family couldn't even come up with 20 billion? Little did everyone know, the Chin family already had a 500 billion financial shortfall, and one of Su Lianyan's conditions for cooperation with the Chin family was that they needed to prove their ability to cooperate. One of the proofs was that they needed to have 100 billion in their account. He would only sign the cooperation agreement when he saw 100 billion. The Chin family had secretly sold off most of their prime assets this time and also used the help of the Shen family. They even promised the Shen family a huge reward, just barely managing to scrape together 100 billion in their account. If the 20 billion were wired to the pirates' account, the Chin family's account would no longer have enough funds to reach 100 billion. Chin's old lady immediately called Qin Jingzhong, but her calls were repeatedly disconnected. Qin Jingzhong was with Su Lianyan and dared not answer the phone. Qin's old lady personally went to find Qin Jingzhong, hoping to expedite Su Lianyan's arrival to verify the funds. After verifying the funds, she planned to wire the money to the pirates' account in time to save her brother. Meanwhile, I leisurely held a glass of champagne, calmly observing the so-called upper-class society, where every seemingly vibrant life emitted a foul stench. It was time to stir up some trouble, cleanse the air, and bring in some fresh perspective. 15 minutes later, Su Lianyan arrived. His subordinates efficiently verified the funds, confirming that the account held the required 100 billion. 25 minutes later, the cooperation agreement was about to be signed. Amidst the admiring gazes of the crowd, Qin Jingzhong signed his name, and everything seemed salvageable. Qin's old lady breathed a sigh of relief. She watched as Su Lianyan lifted his pen, ready to sign the agreement that would make the Qin family a dominant force. She watched eagerly. However, just as Su Lianyan's pen was about to touch the paper, he suddenly remembered something and instructed his subordinates, verify the financial situation again and then report back to me. Verify again? Time was running out, and 20 billion was already being processed for transfer. Qin's old lady's complexion changed abruptly. She said, Mr. Su, the verification has already been completed without errors. Please rest assured that the Qin family absolutely has the capability to cooperate. Su Lianyan put down his pen and said slowly, Madam Qin, are you suggesting that I can't oversee the verification of funds? With that, he stood up, preparing to leave. Qin Jingzhang's face also turned pale. Qin's old lady gritted her teeth and said, No, Mr. Su, I'm afraid of wasting your time. Suddenly, the Bluetooth speakers in the venue connected to a phone call from the pirates. Madam Qin, the 29 minutes are up. The money hasn't arrived in the account yet. It seems your brother's life isn't worth 20 billion after all. Sis, you're my own sister. You can't just watch me die. Qin's old lady's brother's desperate voice echoed through the room. Su Lianyan furrowed his brow slightly. What's going on? Qin's old lady's voice trembled as she said, No, nothing's wrong. Mr. Su, I assure you that there is 100 billion in the account. The pirates began their countdown. Sis, save me. Qin's old lady clenched her teeth, but didn't say a word. Bang, bang. 2 gunshots rang out, followed by a splash, indicating something heavy falling into the water. The countdown timer stopped at 0, and there was no more sound from the pirates. There was also no more sound from Qin's old lady's brother. Qin's old lady, with tears in her eyes, couldn't utter a word. He was her dearly beloved brother. That's why, when he attempted to violate my mother, she not only shielded him but also falsely accused my mother of seducing him, informing old lady Fu. Qin Jingzhang's face also turned deathly pale. He bowed slightly and said, Mr. Su, there is 100 billion in the account. Please review it. For the Qin family, if they couldn't sign the contract today, they would be doomed because everyone now knew that the Qin family was broke. Without Su Lianyan's support, they would truly become dogs who could be kicked by anyone. Su Lianyan glanced at the documents handed over by Qin Jingzhong but didn't accept them. Then he said, "Mr. Qin, forgive me for not signing the cooperation agreement." Qin Jingzhong asked for an explanation. Su Lianyan calmly said, "The conditions for our cooperation were very clear, and it was necessary to have over 100 billion in funds. 100 billion was the minimum requirement. But now I know that 100 billion is the upper limit for the Qin family." Qin's old lady collapsed and said, "Mr. Su, as long as we cooperate, hundreds of billions are not a problem." Su Lianyan said, "Whether it's 100 billion or hundreds of billions, it's not a problem for whoever I cooperate with. Why should I collaborate with someone who can easily sacrifice even their own brother's life?" Qin's old lady laughed bitterly and said, "Mr. Su, you never intended to cooperate with the Qin family from the beginning, did you?" Su Lianyan remained silent. Qin's old lady angrily asked why. I swirled the champagne glass, took one last sip, and said coldly, "Let's go." Su Lianyan bowed towards my direction, then followed behind me. I didn't even bother to offer them an explanation. In my mind, I silently recited, "Mother, Guarna, I've avenged you. I know you wouldn't want to see me like this, but if I didn't do this, I would be unworthy as a man." Everyone was dumbfounded. They had never considered me a threat, only to realize that I was the one orchestrating everything. Qin's old lady stared at me with wide eyes, a look of fear and panic in her expression. Qin Yuanxiu was trembling in fear, slumped like mud in his wheelchair. Shen Jiyan's face was a mixture of fear, regret, and jealousy. Only Qin Jingzhong remained rational. He looked at me, trembling lips saying, "Your mother was so kind. How could you be so cruel?" What he said echoed what my father said on his deathbed. They both knew my mother was kind, yet they allowed her to be mistreated without consequence. If those who trample upon kindness suffer no consequences and even rise to great heights, living in the clouds, who in this world would dare to be kind?